Welcome to SorWil Solutions, where we talk about what's going on in our community. I'm Joe Wilson, president of SorWil Technology Solutions, soon to be Matcha IT Solutions, as we're going through a slow roll of a brand name
So I've heard.
change. More to come on that. Today, our special guest is Mike Smith, a second timer
Thank you,
on
Joe.
the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joe.
You've served as the county commissioner and chairman for the last year. You've been on the commission for going on 4 years now.
5 years. I'm getting ready to go on
5 years.
6.
Getting ready to go on six.
Yeah, I started this is my 3rd year as a chair.
Okay.
I was When I first came on, they voted me in before I knew what was going on, and then they renewed it again, so this is my 3rd time in 5 years as a chair.
But what some people either might not know or may have been surprised to hear, you're also running for lieutenant governor with Stacey Rogers.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
That's exciting. I think people in our area of the community are excited to get behind you, knowing that somebody from our area could be in Topeka legislating for us.
And that's one reason, Joe, I decided I've always felt that Leavenworth County was kinda left out in a lot of things in the metropolitan area, and nothing else, this will get our name out there and let people know that Leavenworth County is here, and we're doing some really great things, and if elected, we can spread this across the state of Kansas.
That's exciting. Your last year or this past year as county commissioner, how was that for you compared to the rest? What do you feel like was the most important accomplishment you've made?
Well, it's kinda apples and oranges. In the first couple years, I ran to get us out of lawsuits.
Okay.
If anybody knew what was going on, the county was getting sued every time they turned around. So we went in there, and not just me, but with the county commissioners back behind me, we made some changes, how we hired people and who we brought in. And in fact, I brought in John Jacobson for planning. I brought in Monica for HR because HR was behind an elected official. We wanted that independent. That was part of the process. And we brought Bill in for public works, who's got us over $100 million in the last 3 years. So that's the reason I ran for it. Start off was to make some changes there. Now we've got there. Now where we're at now is this last year has been a challenge because of RHIDs
Oh,
and how you feel about that and what's the best for the county. My philosophy is already what does it do for the county, Joe? I mean, does it help the county or are we making somebody rich? And I think each one of them, in fact, I voted no on some and I voted yes on some. Each one of them has their own take on what it does for the county. And so that's the reason I went with those. And people say, Mike, you voted for this one, but you don't vote for that one. I look at the numbers and dollars and what's it going to take out of the taxpayers' dollars. At the same time, I realize late Mayor Bernard, a lot of people know, said, "You don't grow, you die," and I
mhm.
think that's a very challenging. The other one I wrestled with, and it'll be somebody else's, and I could never just get the way I wanted it was LCDC and Port Authority.
Mhm.
There's so much going back and forth and bickering that I tried to mediate that, but I never could get to where I wanted to because I couldn't get both sides to play nice together, and they know it. But you've got to have an economic engine. And when I served as intern down in Osawada, Miami County, their county had one, and that's the way they ran it. But each county has their own setup. But you have to have that group or those people that are going to promote your county. So that's probably been the most challenging of one since I've been on the county commissioners.
Boy, you threw out a lot there.
Yeah. Uh,
Stole a lot of my thunder.
um,
I want to get into RHIDs, but you brought up economic development,
right,
and Commissioner Stephen was on recently. We talked about this. You guys hired a economic development director.
right.
That was kind of a failed mission. Didn't accomplish what you guys hoped for. LCDC apparently isn't the answer. You've pulled your funding from there. So, what is the answer for the county? Because as you just said, if we're not growing, we're dying.
I think Tom Cole, who was our economic thing, I think we put him in and put that position because we wanted to have some control over the economic growth, be more involved in it. We didn't feel like, or the board didn't feel like LCDC had a lot of involvement. Sometimes we heard things last, and we thought since we're doing a lot of funding, we should be doing things first. I still believe LCDC can be brought back to life, but at the least, I'd like to see the cities and the county do one themselves. Put something together where they have a rep from each. It can be the mayor, it can be city administrator, it can be somebody that lives out in the community. But put all that together and have those people voting on it. Because when you do that, and if somebody wants to pull out, they can. But then you're looking like I didn't get my way, so I'm pulling out. Right now, we don't have the opportunity of that because it's just we just don't feel that we're getting a voice. And that is not saying they're not doing great things. I mean, three people. I know one of them was just hired for Lansing, and she'll do a great job. And I think Lisa and especially Mary are fantastic people. But we've got to decide: are we going to invest in some kind of economic uh, department, organization, countywide thing, or we're going to continue to just keep arguing and going down this road, and it's just not working.
There are a number of things that LCDC attributes to its impact on the community. Hills Brothers,
Right?
cereal ingredients. But you talk to other people and they attribute those to other um other opportunities and not necessarily the result of LCDC's
I
work.
hear it too, Jim.
What and if we go down this path of having representatives from each city, what I think makes it difficult is economic development is a lot like marketing for business. It's built on relationships.
Right?
Marketing in this community, and people will yell at me for saying this, I think does absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Um, it's all built on relationships we have people. People want to work with people they've worked with.
Right.
And so what I think LCDC has with Lisa is somebody who is known in the community of economic development,
Right.
trying to grow that. Steve Jack did a great job with it when he was there.
Right.
Those are the only two I know. I don't know who go if we go back
Yeah. There's a
beyond
couple more.
Steve,
Yeah.
but how do we if we don't use LCDC, how do we put somebody in that position to be successful?
I think Lisa's done a real good job. She doesn't get enough credit for what she's done. I think it comes down to when I talk about people from the city sitting on board, I'm talking about their executive board.
Okay.
They have boards that make up right now that we all sit on, but executive boards who gets to know the meat of what's going on in the community. And I give you an example where I think it failed terrible, and it could have been a good thing. When Tyson Chicken was going to come to Tonganoxie, uh, I was the mayor then, and I had no
Mayor
idea.
of Lansing.
Yeah, mayor. I had no idea what was going on at the time. I know the governor was down there. It was a big surprise. And when I was in that room with the governor speaking, saw people beating on the window of a restaurant they had it at, and I thought they were celebrating. When I walked outside, they weren't celebrating. They're upset because they weren't involved with the process whatsoever. They hadn't had it explained by whether it be the county or LCDC the infrastructure that was going to be needed. And if you don't involve the public in these decisions, then you're doomed to fail. The key of it is when I say we need an executive board that involves everybody, you also need to be able to have reach out to the citizens and get their input. And I know a lot of people say, well, you got the confidential uh, memos and stuff like that. You can do that. There's ways to get around that, but you've got to involve the community. Now, at the same time, corporations look at it if they know we're getting ready to buy that piece of land is going to skyrocket.
That's right.
So it takes really a professional. But the bottom line is until the communities decide that not everybody's going to get their way and they work together, it's not going to happen. And there's people out there on each board, if you will, that work well. I think I work well with most people. I try my best to
Mhm.
compromise. But you also can put people in there that are like throwing gasoline on a fire. And that goes for the board they've got, and also it goes for some elected officials. And we just haven't been able to get past that. We get past that, I think it'll be a lot more productive, and I think we'll see more things. But we just don't have. The only thing I heard all the time from cities was, anyone said, "What have you done for me lately?" Folks, if it's good for the county, it's good for the city. No matter where it's coming down at, we all benefit. And that you want to get your property tax, Lord, help us bring in some of these things. The other thing that people have an issue with, Joe, is, and we're going to get into it, I think, later, is how much relief do you give these developers coming in? Do you give away the farm? Do you do development agreements, which I've done a lot of, or how do you go about doing it? So, what's it worth to us if you're going to bring in a large corporation?
So when we talked about some of the RHIDs for Lansing, I mean,
Right,
since we're going down this path, um, the the numbers that were shown in that meeting, there was some question too,
right,
right?
yes,
Um, I think the county administrator put together some things that made it appear there might be some additional costs in there for the
yeah,
county actually may have fallen on the city. I think there was costs for the sheriff
Yeah.
and deputies, but that actually would fall on the city if this is a city
Right.
agreement. My struggle here, and I have this conversation with Richard Paz, who's going to be on the show here at some
Yeah.
point as
I
well.
know, Richard.
Um, right now, there's nothing there. If I have to choose between buying a house in Lansing or selling a house in Lansing or selling a house in Johnson County, where am I going to sell it for more money? Likely Johnson County.
Yes.
So I'm already taking a bit of a loss to build in
Right.
Lansing. So there's got to be some kind of incentive to pull me there. It's no different than we go to the store and we want to buy something on sale. There's got to be an incentive to bring us there.
Yeah, absolutely. People don't come to the when we brought Quick Trip in. I courted them for 10 years. IHOP. They didn't all of a sudden say, "Hey, Lansing's got a bunch of nice people," which we do. We're going to come there. They did feasibility studies. They went out and see what the market would support, and then we still court them. You have to have a combination of that. Where I got sideways with some of these RHIDs, first of all, this law came in, and a lot of us, the county, I've done rebates and tax exempts and TIVs and neighborhood modernization things, and we didn't know it had been changed. For some reason, it didn't get down to us. So when it was coming to us from Lansing, and I got a hold of Tim Vandal, city minister, I said, Tim, what is this? This is not, I'm not clear on this, what it's looking. Then you got the people complaining. I honestly think if they put that off for a year and we got caught up on it, there might have been some different people look at it a little different. We didn't know that, and I think the law was wrong on this. We didn't know that if we could veto it, and we didn't know that if we didn't do anything, it automatically goes through. Where I saw the problem with the first one compared to the last one is how long it was going to be. 25 years to 15 years, what we looked at. And the one we did in Lansing, now we just had a ribbon cutting, was 8 years. And what is it going to be? Vertical construction? Is it going to be infrastructure? And those are the things. I think infrastructure is things that we should lean on because they have to come anyway. And then you get the developer to do the housing. So when they said 8 years, the one we just had put in Lansing, I was sold on that. But I said it, I don't know how many times those meetings, folks, I look at each one different. I will weigh each one of them. I don't go this way or go that way. I'm going to see what it does for Leavenworth County or whatever city it's coming through. And there's a place for it. Absolutely, we got to do it. When I became city minister and administrator in 1998 till I think my first 4 years, we brought Mike Riley in. We built 100 homes. And then went downhill because there was some friction on some people. People need to watch what their elected officials are doing, not just the county, not just the
Sure.
state, but local, because they may be ruining something for that community or they may be adding something to that community. And once you start talking that and people believe it, it's on Facebook, it's got to be true. Instead of doing your homework, like I've seen you do, Joe, when you're running for office, then that becomes what's reality, and it's not. So when I look at RHIDs or anything like that, what does it do for the county? What does it do for the citizens? There's some I think make sense in the long run. There's some I think, well, we're in a tough thing with property tax. We just can't. But the other thing I look at too, Joe, and I think you hinted on it, is people saying, we're going to lose this. Folks, if we don't build anything, you can't lose what you don't have. And so that was the thing that kept driving me. So what my main thing was, how many years before we start seeing some of it? But people say, you're going to lose $100,000. I keep asking them. There's a bunch of people in Lansing. I said, what are we losing here if we don't build it? So you have to look at it that way. They were trying to apples and orange on this. If you don't build it, there's nothing there. You do build it, well, you may be losing something, but you're not really, because in the long run, you're going to gain it. And people have to look at it like that.
And I agree with that. And I think that's the point that's often missed, especially when you're building in the city. I can understand if it's a county development and it is a burden on the county and then the county can't justify it. But if it's in the city and the city is taking on all the responsibility and it's very little responsibility to the county, I don't, other than, and I don't even know if it's built in the city, how it impacts the county. But you've got people that are going to now shop in our
Agreed.
stores.
Agreed.
You're going to have kids that are going to be going to our schools. That's automatically more money there because that money isn't impacted.
That's right.
And so, there is, and you have something coming up on the horizon that you don't have right now. And so knowing that you're going to be getting that, I think there's some potential. It's interesting that you said that you had Mike Riley built 100 houses while you were administrator. In the last 7 years, Lansing has built 7 homes.
Why not?
That is so hard to believe. And I saw the disappointment. I watched that commission meeting. I wanted to be there, but I watched it. The disappointment in the staff at Lansing, knowing that they're working their rear tails off to try to bring in more development, and it hits a roadblock here. You, as a commissioner who was the former mayor, former city administrator for Lansing, your loyalty now lies to the county, but there's got to be some bleed over back to
Oh, sure there
your
is.
time. Explain that.
This is my home. Um, First year I got in, the first 6 months I got in, we had a county with sales tax. We had some extra funds. Wouldn't say extra, wasn't spent. Tonganoxie tank it all of millions of dollars, something like that. So I went to the other county commissioner. I said, "Hey, you've never given Lansing anything." We wrote them a check for $300,000 because they need to do some maintenance and sewer and stuff down south because you got to have those lines. So when one of the toughest decisions I had to make was this RHID in Lansing because I know what it was doing. I remember and that's the reason to give a plug out to John Jackson, who I brought in as the planning and zoning director. Since he's come in, we're up 30% on residential homes. We're about the same as Basic building homes. And everyone knows how they're doing. It's also staff that you put in place that gives elected people good advice. And sometimes you have to say, Mayor, that's not the way it's going to work out. I'm telling you. Now they make the decision, but you got to be able to say that. So yeah, there's a lot of loyalty. I spent 47 years. I spent 40 years in Lansing in one form or the other. This is my home. I know everybody. Uh, but now I got to look at the big picture. But that doesn't mean if I see something that can help Lansing, I'm not going to try to jump in with that. That's why I try to get involved with this LCDC so much because I see this thing going by itself. Baser dropped out. We're arguing with the county about it. We can't come to a resolution on that. So I'm saying, what can we do to help get everybody involved in planning the same sheet? But the bottom back to your question, yeah, Lansing, it bleeds over in my heart. Yeah, absolutely it does.
With the new Chiefs Stadium coming to Wyandotte County, how do you think that impacts Leavenworth County and that area as well, Lansing and Leavenworth?
One thing everybody might want to pay attention to, we brought it up last week. We didn't have a transition economic tax. What's it called? Doggone it. Almost every place has got them. Um, Basically, what it is a user fee if you use the hotels.
Mhm.
Leavenworth County don't have one. We're getting ready to put one in. I think that it's going to pass. And what that'll do is when all of these motels and all of these places that you stay in their house and they rent from that, that'll give us 6 to 8% back into the kitty. Once the Chiefs are up there, that will grow. Right now, it'll probably generate 5,000 if we pass it next meeting. But after that, it will grow substantially. And that's where I hope the people that's in charge then will take that money and invest it back because it has to go back economic development or growth or somehow around what the law says you can do. And that's something we're going to put in place. It's going to help people in the future. It's like when I was a city administrator, we put a thing in called neighborhood revitalization. Neighborhood revitalization is, and Joe, it's a 5 or 10 year, depending on how much money the company puts in. We started that about 2005. Um, and it went on a 10-year period. The county gets 5% administrated, and the city got nothing. But every year that went by, it dropped. Then 2 years of 75%, 50. So when I left office, Lansing was getting 100% back
Mhm.
of all the corporations that came in here, and it was like that's the reason they could lower their mill levy. And they went revenue neutral, which is a ridiculous concept. They were able to take the money that past people had uh, invested smart. Remember, I was talking about what does the county get back? You may take 10 years to get it back. I don't believe in doing 2025 unless it's unbelievable. But I guess the bottom line is we're setting things now that in the future, when the Chiefs do come in 31, then Joe, there'll be money sitting in the county to be able to do economic development, which can court. It may be even something they look at LCDC back then or whatever was being funded then. But that'll be money set aside to help grow it because we don't have a stream right now. Leavenworth County Commissioners got rid of that years ago. They used to have a mill, and they got rid of that, I don't know how, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So now it's just at the whim of the county commissioners how much they're going to put in. So
So last year,
transient
going
gas tax. I'm sorry.
transient guest tax,
That's a
is that on top of what the cities are already charging as
yeah.
well?
It'll just be in the county. The cities will get to collect what they got. But if
Okay.
there's anything out in the county, which we expect some of these homes that you rent and you stay in for 2 or 3
Airbnbs.
we expect those to really take off. And when they do, that's money out in the county that the cities can, that the county can put away to help develop Leavenworth County.
But how, assuming that the Chiefs do go to Wyandotte County, I think it's still up in the air. There's still some things. If you listen to the mayor
I
out
know.
there, doesn't sound like she's as on board as she was the day they
Right,
announced it.
right.
Um, how is that going to impact our infrastructure in southern Leavenworth County?
Well, I think it depends. I think that's a real good question. I think that economic can be used for infrastructure too on things, but you got to be prepared. Lansing's done a real good job going south. We've building sewer lines and culverts for the last 20 years, and that's why we can add things. I think it's going to continue down there, but if it's in Leavenworth County, then you know the developer will have to help this cost. Sometimes there's a thing called a pilot check, pay in lieu of taxes.
Sure.
And that's one thing that we're trying to get the post to do on EMS.
Uh-huh.
And that's one tool that you can use to get people that are coming in to say, well, if you do this, then we can do that. There's all kind of ways to make development agreements. There's all kind of ways, but it'll be a big jump down there. Lansing's sewer system can handle almost anything right now. They're about 55%. One good thing, we built it. People saying, what are you guys out of your mind building that large? Well, no, because for 10, 15, 20 years, look what's getting ready to happen down south. And down south's going to grow anyway. Even if the Chiefs weren't coming, they're coming. They really are.
And you're referring to the wastewater treatment plant was
Exactly.
built with the future in mind.
Right. And the
Talk to, go ahead.
state also, we totally supported K5 and realigning it and putting some money in there. And we've got some things that are going to help us at the state said, yeah, with funding. But if you bring in the Chiefs, I guarantee you, state, I'm in office, is going to look at it and say, we've got to get some funding down there from Canada's Department of Transportation and from our folks that set up the wastewaters and things like that. We've got to fund that because it's got to be built. And you can't put that on everybody. Right now, from what I see, and I'm an old Chiefs ticket holder. I love the Chiefs, but my boys grew up with them. I paid a fortune for Chiefs tickets. Can't afford them nowadays, but I used to pay a fortune for them. But that deal was kind of one-sided. And they need to, again, you got to be able to say, okay, what's in it for us? Well, if you look at the long run, I think what you're going to see, if everything plays out, is that development around there is just going to be unbelievable. It's going to spread out wider than I think people imagine.
The concept right now includes a state of the art facility, restaurants. It's going to be a tourist attraction, unlike any other in this area.
Right.
So the potential for the South to grow is going to be there. If for some reason it did end up in Wyandotte County for whatever reason, and Leavenworth County was approached, how would that be taken?
Well, I think that there's a mixed feelings on it. I think we're seeing this as citizens from the elected official. Some people saying, don't give away the farm, we want it here. And some people think it's the best thing since sliced bread. So it'll be interesting to see how it's done. But one thing I looked at, I met a lady years ago when I was a city administrator, in my younger days, named Carol Marinovich. Carol Marinovich was the CEO of Wyandotte County. She had this dream of bringing NASCAR to there. Nobody believed on it. Everybody laughed and thought it was good. Now, there were some bumps in the roads, but I can remember those old farm fields out there. Look at it now and what they've done. The thing you got to be careful is how much tax are you going to let them not pay to bring what you're bringing into it? And that just has to have a long discussion on because every month that goes by, there's something you didn't think about. Okay, what about this? What about that? It's just, this is at a larger scale.
$2.5 billion in sales tax is what's projected once the bonds are paid
Right.
off for the Wyandotte County to be receiving in revenue.
Right.
If it's such a terrible thing, why is Jackson County so upset that the Chiefs are leaving? There's a number of things that everybody wants to look at the naysay of it, but I go back to our conversation on RHID. Once those bonds are paid off, we're looking at potentially $2.5 billion in revenue that will be coming and flowing to Wyandotte
Yeah.
County.
I don't think Jackson, I don't think those folks thought they were going to leave. I thought it was like, you vote for this or we're going to leave. They say, no, you're bluffing. And it wasn't a bluff. In fact, a lot of people around here saying they're never leaving there. I spent many of days out in that parking lot and inside the
Hmm.
stadium, great complex, and the Royals too. But I don't think people thought they were serious. And the other thing is, if you're ever going to host a Super Bowl, you got to have a dome. You have to have it enclosed, and I think that's what they were looking at in the long run.
Well, I think that was, Clark Hunt's big dream is to have a Super Bowl in the
Yeah,
Midwest.
exactly, and then we kept turning them down because, it wasn't enclosed, so that I think that's one of the things that you're gonna see happen. I think all this will be worked out though, Joe, long run.
Going back to your pilot in Fort Leavenworth, I know that's been in the newspaper multiple times. The goal is to try to get some revenue back for EMS services
Right,
on Fort
right.
Leavenworth. How is that going? What can you talk about on that?
Well, I think we worked hard. Years ago when my dad was stationed out here, Fort Leavenworth had their own hospital, their own EMS. They
Hmm.
they did everything. About 10, 15 years ago, they started downsizing, maybe even 20. In fact, you may even just been in law enforcement. Then when they started doing it, they started not doing it and leaving it up to the civilian world. Well, the memorandum of understanding with Fort Leavenworth expired this year. And Jeff Culberson, who has been working very hard for the last 3 years. In fact, I even joined this committee a year ago to try to get something to come in just to offset that. Don't get me wrong. My dad's a retired colonel. I love it. I'm Army bred. I grew up in it, but we're just hoping that we get some kind of help. I think with the new garrison commander going on, we're going back and forth talking. Their timetables and ours are totally different. It's out of DC and things like that. I would hope we'd get there. But one thing I told them, and people didn't want me to say, but if someone on Fort Leavenworth needs EMS, Joe, they're going to get EMS. I'm not going to ever have sold this over somebody's life. But I'm hoping what will happen is we'll be able to find some kind of middle ground. One of the things their argument that doesn't hold water is though, well, you're using numbers that they've given us for 7 or 8,000 people, which is their population. No, for about 12 hours a day, you've got 27,000 in there. And that's how we have to set up. We built an EM station close to them just to service them. So we're
Hmm.
just saying, really we need about 3 million. I'm saying just give us a million. Do give us something to offset because we're having to pay it. And people say, well, the insurance pays that. Have you ever tried to get your insurance to pay your EMS bill? That's one of the lowest percentages they pay. It's going to come out of your pocket too, and they won't pay us because it's such a low pay. So I'm hoping the garrison commander and the medical people there that are involved in that uh, conversation have a year left. I'm hoping they'll get that resolved. I'm hoping they get resolved before next 90 days because there was a vote, which I didn't vote for, is that we're going to stop servicing EMS. And I'll fight that tooth and nail. We got, we can't just take our ball and go home on either side. And I'm saying the post has got to come play ball with us too. But, being law enforcement is too much. And you know as well as though when EMS, if they're delayed a couple minutes, a lot of bad things can happen.
I would hope that would get worked out because I would hate to see somebody's life be put in jeopardy simply because we can't agree on numbers.
Absolutely. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. One of the things that Commissioner Culberson has suggested here recently is since so much of our county is tax free for
Right.
the fort, the prisons, and all that, is
Yeah.
he had suggested some type of income tax. Where do you stand, and what are your thoughts on that?
I think there's two or three thoughts on that income tax um, and a user fee. I think there needs to be something resolved. What I think, in my opinion, not speaking for Jeff, is we've got a lot of funds that are going across the bridge. It's cheaper to live in Missouri. They
Hmm.
buy houses, they pay property tax, but yet they're using our roads and our services. So there has to be something that can be done. Some places have done that and been very successful. I would think if the state would quit putting these unfunded mandates on us and also free a little of the money up. And I know we've only got so much time, but I didn't want to, demand transfers or ad valorem tax, which we were supposed to receive by law, and the state refused to do it until we pressured them. Then they changed the law, and they're still collecting the tax. Joe did away with that. We cut the mill levy down 8 or 9 mills, which would have seen a lot of impact. So something's going to have to be done offset this. And whenever you get something to Topeka, it takes 5 or 6 years before you get something worked out. I think there's a combination of those things that you could do together, not just one standalone, like they're doing at 2% right now. I think there's a combination you could do that help. And I'm a total believer in user fee. If I had my way, I'd have a toll gate. Because coming in, because I think people that use our facilities should help pay the cost. And that's why the transient guest tax is so, I favor it so much, because those are people that are going to come in and pay for some services. They don't live here, but they're going to help pay for the cost of those services.
Missouri is getting ready to vote on eliminating state income
Yeah,
tax. How do you think that's going to impact economic development between the two states? Is that going to draw people to Missouri simply because there's no state income
I
tax?
think it will. I think anyway. One thing that the state did this place last year or this year, Social Security, they don't tax you on your state. But is whenever you eliminate something that large, absolutely, it's gonna do it. It seems like we're always playing catch up to some of these other states instead of taking the lead on it, and I don't know what the reason is that. Some people get in there and they don't wanna make change, and they're the leaders, the people in Topeka. I'll give you an example, and I'm going off to the right a little bit. When people uh, get their appraisals and you have to pay your taxes on it, that should say Leavenworth County. That should say Kansas appraisal because we do not run that. They set the policy and they do it. And Missouri's smart enough to realize get some of these things and you'll grow because people are going to come there.
Didn't Senator Brownback try that same thing in Kansas
Yeah,
years ago and it failed miserably? It put the county almost corrupted the state, I mean?
I think one of the problems is when you've got you can take any good policy and ruin it by adding certain things into it. Have you ever noticed there's some things that come out and then somebody wants to have to amend it and join it, which would totally destroy what we're trying to get across. I think his concept was right, but you're right. It almost destroyed the entire state. But you've got to be able to bring something to the table that will work for everybody. And that's where if you ever notice when I was a county, the chairman, if some county commissioner brought up something, I wouldn't let it be voted on to the next meeting. And the reason I did that, Joe, is because you need that 24, 48 hours to research it, to take a look at it and say, okay, is this a good thing? Because you're going to think of different things. So if you put it off for a week or two, then you can have the staff get it ready, just like they could have done with the governor, and then say, oh, these are the things that we might want to look at now, and let's not hurry it. Let's not ever vote on something unless it's a life-saving measure. Right there, let's put it down a week or two so we can get our arms wrapped around it.
One of the things that the city commission is talking about is banning the some of the substances in these vapes that you get
Yeah,
in some of the shops now. 07H or something
yeah,
like this,
yeah.
70H. Um, where does the county stand on that and what are the thoughts?
If you asked each county commissioner, they'd give you a different one. It's like marijuana. Some people we know, in my opinion, don't support it, but we know it's coming because everybody's around us. So I think they have all have mixed feelings on that, Joe. You'd have to ask them. They they one of them see it's the worst thing since uh, there is, and one of them think it's a revenue stream, and we should allow its people's rights to do what they want to their body. But that's that's where you get sideways on this.
Let's move into your run for lieutenant governor. Completely shocked a number of people. I think once you announced, I must have gotten. I think people understand our
Yeah, they
relationship. I must
do.
have gotten 10 or 15 calls. Is this real? What's
Yeah,
going on?
yeah.
What was going through your mind? How did that conversation come about? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I had planned on running for county commissioner one more term, but
Hmm.
I felt there was some business, and I also wanted to make sure there were some people coming back that had some time in the system so they could explain some things. I had a couple people up in this area and elected folks recommend to Stacey Rogers, who I didn't even know at the time, that she couldn't find a candidate she was happy with. So I was down at a commissioners conference in Wichita, and she wanted to meet with me during lunch. Sure. Joe, I'll talk to anybody. Uh, so we sit down and we talk for a couple hours, and she told me what she believed in and the challenges and why she's running. what she was looking for in a candidate. So she got to know me better. She really appreciates the law enforcement aspect because, as you will know, Joe, you've been in the law enforcement thing. You're right there on the ground when
Mm.
things are happening. So she enjoyed that, and she goes, "Mike, can I get back with you?" I said, "Do this. Come up to a county commission meeting. I'm the chair now. See how I run it. Tell me what you think." I said, "I'm not going to tell you I'm running with you now. I just want to get this is your campaign. I'm here to assist if that's where you go." So she came up there, and Joe is one of the worst meetings I ever had. I couldn't control those county commissioners. They were all on point things, but they were all over the board. I had to gavel a couple of times to get it, and I'm looking out and like I said, "Well, you've made up your mind, haven't you, after watching me do this?" Anyway, we met afterwards in my office, and she said, "Well, Mike, have you made your decision on this?" I said, "Well, I was wanting," and we don't know each other about a month, 6 weeks. I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I did," and this is exactly what happened. First of all, I talked to God. I said, "Direct me to the path I need to go because I've always listened to you and I've been able to go the right way. Don't walk on water. Everybody knows me. I've made my mistakes." And then my dad, who passed away in July, always wanted me to go one step further. Well, I think his one step further was representative or something like that in the House. But so I wanted some more time to think about it. And Joe, I'm just driving back from Wichita on another meeting down there, and it just hit me like it was the right thing to do. I love being a county commissioner. Best job I ever had was wearing a badge, though. Whenever I tell everybody that, that's the
Yeah.
best job I ever had. But I love being a county commissioner. I love the staff, all 400 employees up there. They're a good group of people. Um, but I thought that was the right. So she came back up and we went to lunch and she asked me, "Mike, I really want you to run with me. The way you look at things, the way you conduct yourself. And sometimes that's half the battle, Joe. It's like being a police officer. When you get on the scene, are you going to make it worse or are you going to calm it down?" And I told her that I would do it if she thought I was brilliant. And then she wanted us to set a date to go get the sign the thing,
Mhm.
maybe thinking I was gonna change my mind, I don't know. So we met in Wichita and I signed on the dotted line, and we've talked a lot on the phone because she's out of Wichita,
Uh-huh.
business lady out of Wichita, and we've talked a lot, when she's up here and talk about what's going on the rest of the state. The reason she One of the reasons she wants, I got experience in almost every field. I
Mhm.
tell some people I can't keep a job because, I had the police 21 years, city minister 16, mayor 4. I was down in, Osawatomie for 9 months while they were looking for one. They hired me when I was for 9 months to oversee their place down there. And then on the county commission, and when they went to 5, I knew I'd run for that because I didn't feel we'd been represented with only 3. And so the man upstairs has guided my all down the line. And I know, so I decided I was going to work with her. And the more I get to know her, I made the right choice. And Stacy and I both know this is an uphill battle. But if we can get the word out about some things that need to change and things that are causing problems, like if you don't have so much money, you don't get to be part of the debate, things
Mhm.
like that. Those things are wrong, Joe. They're basically wrong. That's not what this country was built on. And so we're getting stuff like that out, and we're meeting with a lot of people. I tell you, the western part of the state think they're not even heard in Topeka. So they're very welcoming to Stacy and I coming out to talk to them, and that's going to be our platform. Does she have some things that we disagree on a little bit? Absolutely, but it's her campaign, and I think I'm more of a sounding board for. One of your questions that you asked me was, "Well, what do you expect to do when you come out there?" Well,
Mhm.
first thing I want to do, I want to recommend to the governor, Stacy, is we need to look at all these budgets and let's see if there's any fluff or is there some money going somewhere it shouldn't be going? The other thing is, Lieutenant Governor, I don't plan to sit up in Topeka. I'm going to be on the road. I'm going to love to come back here. I'm going to be out in Hayes, Salina, Small, Horton, any place I need to go because they need to see your
Mhm.
elected official. When I used to interview for jobs, they go, "Mike, are you in the office?" Well, I'll be in the office when I need to be. But people want to see the person that's in charge. They need to be able to vent and talk to them.
That's interesting. Secretary or Lieutenant Governor Dave Tolan took the job as Secretary of Commerce as well.
Right.
So, and he's done a lot of good
Yeah. Yeah.
things. Could you see yourself doing
Yes.
something like that?
Absolutely. In fact, I've talked to Stacy about that. In fact, I think that's probably one of my strong points is to get involved in that because that's where we need to keep going forward. And if you get the governor, lieutenant governor behind you, usually you can get some things going, whether it's funding or you get the House or the Senate to help you with some things that are your priority. You have to work. We all have to work together. And I hate vetoes, but we've got to make some changes.
You have admittedly said it's a bit of an uphill battle.
Yes,
Is that because Stacy is relatively new to this? Is it why do you think that
financially.
is
Yeah,
financially?
we've got you've got millionaires running against us.
Hmm.
And the old saying, "You can buy election." I hope that's not true, but you got money that can come in, and there's ways of getting people money that because you got like a $4,000 limit you can give a candidate, but there's ways of going things and getting money to candidates that are people probably don't know about. It's legit, but it's that we don't have that. But I can tell you, when we go and we speak, especially Stacy, she's getting donations. There are people after they listen to her, they said, "Yeah, we need this kind of change." So that's the uphill battle. The message is not uphill. The message is that we can get it out to people. I think are going to say, "We need to buy into this, young lady."
What is her one most important thing on her list to accomplish if she was elected?
I think it's to look at the budget and see if there's any things that are going someplace or something like that. That's very important to her, and she doesn't believe giving away a lot of um, uh, money unless it's a worthy cause. She's got a lot of questions on the Chiefs thing,
Hmm.
and the questions are good, same ones I have. At the same time, I love the Chiefs, but she wants to ask those hard questions and get that. But it all comes down to where's the money going?
Hmm. We kind of talked about this in the beginning, bit of a hot topic. We've seen what's going on in Minneapolis.
Yeah,
Um, both of us have been in law enforcement. What are your thoughts there?
and this is just me speaking,
Sure.
not Stacy. Not
Yeah,
me
sure.
speaking.
Not county commissioner.
No, this is
This
just
is
Mike. What I saw and how I handle things when I was an officer. I think they probably need to look at some of these shootings that are going on. But from whatever I can see, it's a group of people that are funded by people across this country. They're paid agitators, and they go in there and they do this. Joe, if someone tried to run you over with a car, you're trying to get out of the way. You don't want to take nobody's life. I don't think any officer wants to do that. That's the last thing we want to do. Look at some of these things on how many times they're begging them, get out of the car, stop, don't do that. And I think it was just a matter of time. People say, no, we're not going to put up with this anymore. You're going to be held accountable. And I think they're going to have to be held accountable. President Trump ran on that. Is we're going to get people that don't belong in the country out. Now, are they going to be mistakes made? Absolutely. Hopefully, there won't be any serious ones made. But I think what ICE is doing is what the people directed them to do is clean up this country.
so I'm going to push back just a little bit here.
Okay.
Secretary Nome had suggested that you don't bring a gun to a rally,
Yeah.
a loaded gun, because now you're asking for trouble. But yet Kyle Rittenhouse carried a machine gun to
Yeah.
a
Right.
rally and was those same people, Cash Patel, those same people defended him in his right to bear arms. Why do we see so much hypocrisy in politics?
It's it's politics used to be you could get along my dad's day and probably my
Hmm.
younger days. Now it's so far right, so far left. I think a person has a right to bear arms. What I don't think a person has a right is bring that weapon out and make it an aggressive action or make it an emotion unless your life's threatened. I just get chills when I see people walking around with machine guns down streets. That's not what I vision is what America's supposed to be about. But at the same time, I look and say, if they're going to be carrying those weapons, you've got to be able to protect yourself too. So I think there's a fine line that you got to do. I believe in right to bear arms. Always will. Always carry. When I leave, I just being police officers, we can do it anyway. But I always believe that. But I think what gets mad is people say, well, if you have that weapon, it killed. That weapon didn't kill. That person killed. And maybe the way they were brought up, maybe the way they were trained on it. But I believe people have the right to bear arms no matter where they're at. Go ahead, Joe.
So, once again, I will go back to the hypocrisy.
Yep.
If we look at the George Floyd incident, what
Yeah.
happened to that officer? If you or I had shot somebody in the face, regardless of the circumstances, it would have been investigated to no end. The president wouldn't have defended either of
Yeah.
us. Why is this different?
It isn't different. When a shooting happens, there needs to be an outside agency looking at it, and not just you. And you get your internal affairs, as you know well,
Hmm.
that you do it, and they handle. But you have to have an outside independent agency doing. What you've got to do with that independent agency is they have to have law enforcement experience. And then they have to have people that don't have it so you can look at both sides of this because you don't want anybody getting gun happy. I don't know about you, but I worked around some John Waynes, and that's the last thing you want. But they get through once in a while, no matter how many psychological evaluations, lie detector test, drug screening, visiting. They sometimes get through, and it happens. But when it does happen, you have to hold them accountable, but not push it aside like it's okay.
Seems like the right and the left see this in two different lights. It's a legality versus a morality
Right?
issue.
You're right, Joe.
And that's tough because as a law enforcement officer, you want to say the law enforcement did the right
Yeah.
thing. As a human being, the morality is somebody was shot and killed. It's hard to marry that together. And neither side wants to concede that the other side could have been wrong in some fashion.
Or kind of,
I'm right. You're
yeah.
wrong. It doesn't matter what it is, simply because my side is right.
You're right.
But the middle area is so gray.
Yep.
And that's where we come together. But yet nobody wants to concede that.
Right. I think in my opinion, it went so far left, so much that the right wants to bring it back, and I'm this is just me talking out loud
Sure.
to bring it back to the middle, so nobody's willing to give give an inch on this. But I don't. I had to draw my weapon very few times, but I was involved. I handled a couple standoffs. I handled a person shoot his wife. I had a rifle pointed at us out south, something like that. I never felt to the point that I had to pull that trigger. I always thought there was another way. Now, that may be ridiculous on my part because you don't want your life to be in danger too. But I think with the right training, you can think some of these cars that I see when I run these people over, if they're coming right at you, I understand that. But if they're going to the right and they won't listen to you, we got to be able to adjust how we handle each situation. A life is a life, Joe.
Are these ICE agents trained to the same standard that we were trained as police officers?
That's a real good question. I hope so. And I think most of them are, but I think again, sometimes we get people wearing badges that are just too aggressive. We also get people that hate ICE that are too aggressive too. And I think your point's well taken about the middle has to come back.
It seems like they've spun up so many. And once again, I'm not saying ICE is wrong. I'm not saying the left
Right.
is right.
Same here.
We have spun up so many ICE agents so quickly. It seems difficult to believe that they achieved the same level of
Training.
training that we did.
And you remember the FTOs. Well,
Mhm.
Phil, we before we go out by ourselves, we had to be in a car 6 months, a year, whatever the policy was at that time. There's a reason for that. The reason is you get experience and you see what the senior officer's doing and how to handle it. There's some senior officers I've known, some of them have passed away, that deflated a situation that was unbelievable. But there's also some that I think escalated it. And I was involved in a couple with my lieutenant that I was handling this, but next thing I know, we're all on the ground wrestling. I think your point's well taken about the training that comes like that. And I don't know what their training is. Maybe they
That's
are.
fair.
Maybe they are. But at the same time, training is one of the key things.
I think when I went to the academy, it was 13 weeks. I think it's a lot longer now.
I think about 16 now. Yeah.
It seems like there was a large focus on de-escalation. Um,
Communication. Yeah.
I don't know that we're seeing that.
Well, when they came out with tasers, and I don't know if you ever got shot with a taser.
Oh, plenty of times.
And before I let my officers do it, we would get tased.
Yep.
I'd rather take a beating with a bat. That taser would get to you. But I think they were trying to find a middle ground besides shooting somebody. Like anything else, sometimes a taser is not needed either. When I first started, we used this mace. I think that mace only affected me. I don't think it ever affected anybody I was trying to apprehend because it got on me and just tore me up. But I think the training's always been a key. When I went, shows you how old ago, it was 10 weeks. And then it went to 14. Now I think it's 16. And they didn't require FTOs. Now you got to have a full training officer with you. And most time people go a year, and you're on probation for that time. If they see something out of line, or they may get you evaluated. When I went, you didn't have to have a psychological evaluation. You did after you got through the academy, but now we make you go before to see if there's any little things that might be there that we don't know about that we need to talk about. Doesn't mean you won't make a good officer, but bring it in front of us. I don't know what the ICE thing is. I know
Mhm.
they've got a tough job. and I certainly wouldn't want to do it. And I think the people that are going out there spitting on them, something like that, and throwing signs and beating on their cars, that's not protest. That's taking it one step. You protest and you make your noise known. I don't think you go to violence on protesting, even though we all know that's part of it.
On the same and reverse side, and playing devil's advocate here, I think the other side will say it's not American to snatch people off of the streets and not give them due process, to send them to some Salvadoran prison and serve time simply because they're here illegally or undocumented, however you want to say it. The problem in my eyes is not that we're sending people back that shouldn't be here, but we don't have a path that allows these people to be productive citizens, or because we need them to do the work that we don't want to do. You don't want to pay $15. I use this example all the time. $15 for a pound of apples at the grocery store, or $20 for a pound of strawberries. And you're certainly not going to go out there and pick them for $2 an hour or $3 an hour.
I think what we're doing right now is we had to bring it back to the middle. To me, anybody that's in this country, illegals, that's a crime to me. And that's just the way I look at it. Do I think there should be something, and I hope it'll come down the line, that when people are picked up, there's a process that's better than what we've got now, and they can become American citizens instead of having to wait to 5 or 10 years, that they can do something. But I think we've let the gates open so hard and let so many people in that they're going to continue doing this till we get it under control. And then I would hope in my heart that whoever's in charge then would look at it and say, okay, there's a better way to do this and get people that just want to make a better life for themselves.
We're going to go into our second segment here in just a second. Is there anything you want to say in reference to your campaign? Possibly how people can get involved or donate?
Well, I would just say, first of all, anybody that knows me can reach out to me, and if they want to talk to Stacey, who's the main one, I can definitely set it up with her. You can go to her site. It's Stacey for Governor, and it's there's two or three out there, and she answers questions immediately. The only thing I would say about it is get Stacy in your area, or myself, and let us talk to you and ask us the hard questions. We may not agree, but ask us the tough questions because I really want their voice heard. And right now, the way it's done in this country, I don't think everybody's voice is heard.
The other thing that I want to highlight is normally we support a
Yep.
nonprofit. Today, I want to talk about the Community of Hope. The weather is terrible out there. The opportunity for somebody who is homeless to find a warm place to stay. You know, if you can find it in your heart to donate, the Community of Hope, I think, is a great opportunity. Look them up, Interfaith Shelter, on the internet, and maybe make a donation so they can continue the mission that they have.
That's great, Joe. I'm such a softy for that in St. Luke's. When I see kids or I see people standing on the corner like that, looking at the place like, what do I do now? It just breaks my heart. Nobody should have to go through that in America.
That's a great point. So we're going to do rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So these are going to be a little more fun, a little less heavy. One leadership habit you rely on daily.
I think just a 24-hour rule. I let people vent, let people talk to me, then I'll come back. If I don't have the answer, give me time to think about it and see if that's the way I want to respond or not. I think that's important.
Most misunderstood role of a county governor, county government.
County government, that we set property tax. We do not set property tax. We collect it for the state, but we do not set it.
Toughest vote you had to cast this year.
RHIDs. Yeah, because I want Lansing, Leavenworth County to grow.
One thing Kansas does better than people think.
One thing that I think they do better, I think their roads. I think the road systems in the state of Kansas are really top notch compared to the other places.
Okay, I'm going to flip that. One thing Kansas needs to do better at.
Uh, I think have more, be more creative
Okay.
with things.
Early mornings or late nights.
Early mornings.
Okay. Coffee or tea.
Tea.
Chiefs, Royals, or Sporting KC.
Peace.
All right. Last book you read.
Joel Osteen.
Okay.
He's a pastor out of
Mhm.
Texas, and I've read all of them. I can't remember the name. Becoming a Better You, a daily thing. I think he talks to people in a voice that they understand in today's world.
Best piece of advice you've received.
Uh, my dad. Son, don't take yourself so serious. I've
What keeps you grounded outside of politics?
got 10 grandkids,
Oh, wow.
and they're all over the country now because they've moved away as people do. Uh, uh, my love for people, Joe. I think people, most people, and I know there's people that hate my guts, and that's the way it is. But I just love talking with people. And a lot of people I know will say, Mike, how can you hold it when you go into Dillon's and get groceries? People come up to you. That's a joy to me.
I will say, being a city commissioner, and I try not to wear this hat during the podcast, it is hard to get work done because no matter where you go, somebody wants to stop and talk.
Absolutely.
And by nature, we want to stop and listen to what they have to say. We
Right.
don't want to be rude. And I also enjoy talking with people about what's going
Yeah.
on, hearing the things they like, even
Yeah.
hearing the things they don't like.
Right.
I've been overwhelmed with emails lately in reference to some of the things that we're talking about. But to me, also,
But
I
you know
think
why
that
that
is,
was, Joe? Is because the campaign you ran, they got to know you, and they got to know you, and I think we have the same characteristics. You'll listen and you'll talk to them. You're not going to be judgmental. That's why people are calling you, Joe.
and I enjoy it. I enjoy it completely. I enjoy being serving in office.
Right.
I don't like being called commissioner. It feels uncomfortable still.
Yeah.
I don't like being treated differently. I would rather somebody just come up to me and say, "Hey, Joe," and just start talking with me.
If you ever see anyone come to me, unless they're trying to be funny, call me chair, or they call me councilman, just come, hey, Mike, you got a minute? Yeah, that's the way I enjoy that too.
Mike, thanks for coming back on our podcast.
Loved it.
I appreciate you dropping in last minute. We had a last minute cancellation. I called up Mike yesterday. He said, "I'll be there, Joe."
Yeah.
And you were, and you took some tough questions that we don't normally ask. And I just appreciate you. I appreciate the mentorship that you've given me over the years, your encouragement of me getting involved in politics to begin with.
You've done well, young man.
Well,
You've done
it's
well.
it's still early there, Batman.
Hey, Superman.
I haven't made any major decisions yet for people to be too mad at. Anyways, if you like what we're putting out there, please like and subscribe so we can continue to provide these interviews with important people in our communities, nonprofits, people that impact our lives on some level daily. And also keep your eyes open as SorWil slowly morphs into Matcha IT. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.